Coming up on UGTV, Standing Committee Meetings of the Unified Government of Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas. We begin with a meeting of the Public Works and Safety Standing Committee. This will be followed by the Administration and Human Services Standing Committee.
All right. Good evening. I'll call this meeting of the Administration and Human Services Standing Committee to order. We want to welcome everyone to this meeting. Public comment is welcome. Anyone wishing to speak on any item on the Standing Committee agenda may do so when that item is up for discussion. You'll have 3 minutes to state your comments. Come forward to the microphone and you will be recognized. For accurate recording purposes, we ask all present to speak directly into a microphone. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Roll call. Publc.
Present.
Johnson. Kane.
Here.
Bynum.
Here.
Markley.
Here. A blue sheet was distributed indicating corrections to the committee agenda item number 3. The attachments to the original communication have been changed to reflect the proposed policy in the Human Resources Guide. Next, we have the minutes from our April 25th meeting.
Move for approval. Second.
There's a motion and second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The minutes have been approved. We have 4 items under our committee agenda. Item number 1 is a request from Marilyn Ahlstrom, Executive Director of Leadership 2020, regarding an extension to spend their 2015 Hollywood Casino grant allocation. I'll ask Joe Connor to present this item.
Sure. Hi, Commissioners.
I
Good
was
evening.
looking for you.
And this was an item that came before, I presented probably a few weeks ago, and talked with Marilyn about the date and what time to be here, and apparently we've had a little miscommunication. So I guess I would request that this item be held over till next month and make sure that she's here to present this item for you.
Is this Commissioner Kane's grant from last year?
Yes, and I cannot explain it the way she would be able to explain it. So do I have to make a motion for that, Joe? Make a motion to hold it over till next month?
I don't need to hold it over.
I mean, I think we can just postpone it.
Oh, I think we need some conversation on it, absolutely.
Okay, that makes you feel better.
Okay.
So
So we will hold that over for the next agenda.
It's not that it makes me feel better. I want a full explanation of what happened and why it happened and why she did what she did and why she offended the school district. So I have some more information that you guys don't have. So I apologize for wanting the full explanation of how this went down.
Okay.
Oh, that's great.
Okay. Thank you.
you.
Item number 2 is a resolution approving a fair housing collaborative agreement. I'll ask Wilba Miller to present this item. Welcome, Wilba.
Good evening, Commissioners. HUD has requested for the last several years that we do analysis of impediments to fair housing. And this collaboration agreement is between the city of Kansas City, Missouri, I believe Blue Springs, Lee Summit, and Leavenworth, Kansas, and Kansas City, Kansas, to prepare a regional fair housing study. And HUD has requested that everyone sign the collaboration agreement. Legal is here if you have some questions about the actual agreement. If not, I did pass out a brochure to you showing our first meeting, our public meeting for fair housing. We're going to have it in RC on the 18th of July and invite the public to talk about how they feel about fair housing and whether or not they've been discriminated against, or if there were other things that this city as well as the other cities in the region could do.
Now, how will this brochure get out into the world?
Well, the brochure was just approved last week. We've already started we're just distributing it to everybody in the groups. We are also working on an ad. The ad will be put in all of our local papers, just like all of the other community development ads. And then, of course, the UG website, Twitter, Facebook, all of those things. In addition, some of the staff from LISC, the Equity Assessment Network, is going to be working with distributing to the public.
Any other questions? If not, she needs.
Just so the public also understands that this kind of falls on the heels of the new Continuum Consortium for Continuum of Care for our region coming together under HUD, and we're the baby on that. And I think this falls right along that category of trying to go regional so we can operate more efficiently. So this works right along with the new Continuum of Care, so I want to thank them for doing this.
Right.
It'll make it easier on the homeless.
Julia Castro from the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development came in March, I believe, and Melissa Gordon and I sat in on that meeting, as well as the mayor's staff, where they really are requesting Casey Mo, the region, to be the first region to adopt the fair housing on a regional basis. And one of the things that happens with that is that not only do you have to talk about fair housing in your community, but also in how your community fits in regionally. So each city that's going to be doing one of these, everybody that gets CDBG funds has to do this. All housing authorities will have to do this and compare themselves to the region. So this is a big deal.
I move that we move it forward to the full commission.
Second.
Fabulous. A motion has been made and a second. Roll call on that motion.
Roll call. Philbrook,
Yes.
Kane,
Aye.
Bynum,
Aye.
Markley.
Aye. Thank you. Item number 3 is a communication amending the UG Human Resources Guide Employees Conceal Carry Policy. This item has been approved to be fast-tracked to the June 30th, 2016 full commission meeting. I'll ask Jenny Myers from Legal to present this item.
Good evening. Due to recent legislation, we had a need to update our human resources guide to allow for concealed carry by employees. So this was House Bill 2502, and I basically gave you the language right out of the House bill, so you can see why we did this. But basically it says no public employer shall restrict or prohibit through policies any employee who is legally qualified from carrying any concealed handgun while engaged in the duties of such employee's employment outside the employer's place of business, including while in a means of conveyance. So this basically says that we have to adopt it. We can no longer prohibit it. Just to be clear, there are still no guns in unified government buildings. So in 2013, we exempted all UG buildings from the law. We have that exemption for 4 years. So this will be at least through the end of 2017. There will be no guns by anyone in any UG building. Legally qualified. So no one has to have a concealed carry permit anymore. So that's not only UG employees, that's all citizens can now conceal carry legally without going through background checks, training, education, fees, anything like that. So legally qualified in this term means basically not otherwise prohibited. So we may have some employees who are not legally allowed to conceal carry if they have prior felonies, crimes of misdemeanor, domestic violence. Those people cannot carry regardless of employment with us or not. Concealed carry of a handgun, we define that in the policy. So the handgun must be carried on one's person or under one's control in such a manner as to not be visible to an ordinary person under normal circumstances. So this is concealed carry only. This is not open carry. So if an employee chooses to carry, it must be concealed at all times. We put printing should be avoided. So printing is when you carry a handgun to where you can see the outline of it. So basically everybody knows you're carrying. We're going to try to limit that. Must be completely concealed at all times. So no printing, no outlines. It must be in the immediate control of the employee at all times. So it's got to be on their person. May not be left unattended. It may not be left in a UG vehicle. So we have to allow them to carry it in a UG vehicle when they're outside UG buildings on UG duty, on duty, but they cannot leave it in the UG vehicle unattended. They still are allowed, employees are still allowed to possess handguns in their personal vehicles on UG property. We amended that last year for state law. So the prohibited acts, no physical or verbal reference that an employee is carrying. You cannot display a weapon. Open carry for all employees is prohibited. Failure of an employee to keep the gun in their immediate possession and control, including leaving it in a vehicle. They cannot use the handgun, so they may carry the handgun, but they are not allowed to discharge it. Possession by an employee who is not legally qualified. So if we find out that we do have a felon who is in possession, they can be disciplined subject to the policy.
Could you go back, please?
Yes.
The part where he can't use it,
Yes.
where's that at?
Unlawful use of a handgun in the workplace, the second from the bottom.
So if somebody's pointing a gun at him, even though he's working, he's not supposed to pull a gun at him.
They can carry it. There's just nothing. We're not going to tell them when they can and cannot use it. This is mainly, I would say, so we don't have target practice out in the field. So we're not shooting animals, not shooting it in the air. So I think if it came to a legal justification, we could deal with that accordingly.
So basically, you're just throwing the unlawful use on there to remind people that they have to attend to how they're using their gun.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
There is a city ordinance that also it's illegal to discharge a firearm within the city limits. So this would be consistent with that. Concealed carry while on duty. So if they are going to be out in the field, they have to abide by all applicable laws of other buildings they are going to. So if while on duty they're going to go into a school, they cannot conceal carry into that school. If they're going to go to a restaurant that doesn't allow it, they cannot carry. They cannot carry into any UG buildings. So, but they also cannot leave that firearm in a UG vehicle. So if they cannot carry into the building, they cannot leave it in the UG vehicle unattended. Scope of employment, we've added some language in there that carrying a concealed handgun is not within their scope of employment. Any injury will not be considered an on-duty injury for workers' compensation, and any liability will be of a personal nature, since carrying a firearm is not part of the scope of their duty, so UG will not defend that. This is effective July 1st, which is this Friday, so therefore we need you to fast track this, if approved, to this Thursday's commission meeting. If so approved, then Renee will be sending out an email to all employees this Friday, as well as a letter to department heads having each employee acknowledge the new policy and sign off on that.
Move for approval, including the fast tracking for this Thursday's meeting.
Will that email include information about how an employee would report something if they thought there was an improper carrying going on?
Yes, that's included in the policy as well.
I just want to comment because I've already seen commentary online about this issue. Just want to make clear for the record, we're doing this because state law requires it, and we would love to have a choice, but we don't. So, just for anyone who's watching on TV, it doesn't understand why this is happening. It's happening because state law requires it, and that's where we are.
And could we, the elected commissioners, also receive the memo when you put it out to all departments?
Yes, I'm planning on having that sent out, unified government-wide through email. We'll put it on ESS, and then it'll go out through DOTS technology, so that way it'll go to every UG employee.
Thank you.
And then department heads will be covering that with their employees and having an acknowledgement signed off that they've covered it and they're in receipt of the policy.
Great. All right, we do have a motion and a second. If there are no further questions, roll call on that motion.
Roll call. Philbrook,
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
Bynum,
Aye.
Markley.
Aye. Thank you, ladies. Item number 4 is a communication regarding exploring a Car River Bike Pedestrian Bridge Grant application. Melissa is going to present.
All right. Well, Commissioners, this is one of the items that had a blue sheet change for you tonight. As Kansas City, Missouri, and Unified Government staff started working through this grant, it became apparent to us that the matching dollars that were noticed in the RFA that was done a couple of weeks ago were not available as we were both thinking they were. However, in conversations back and forth between our two communities, it was determined that it was in our best interest to explore what was brought forward and to go ahead and start doing the due diligence to make this trail connection possible for the community. If you're interested in learning more about what we're hoping it looks like over time, the Highline Trail in New York City, which I've never been to, but I've seen pictures of it online, is the kind of vision concept that this is looking at. The grant has 3 components to it. One is to do a phase 2 engineering study to determine that the structure is actually able to support the concepts that are being discussed. It also has a really big citizen engagement component, because that's what these Sustainable Places grants are all about. So we'll be learning what people's needs and interests are for this type of trail connector. And the last part will be taking that feedback and then the structural analysis and actually making some very preliminary designs on how we connect the trails, the amenities that need to go with it, such as parking, and some schematics on landscaping and other types of stuff that we would want to look at going forward to meet that input. So $15,000 from the UG is what we would be committing towards the trails. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
The second to the last sentence on the request for action says the unified government will not be required to provide any sort of matching dollars, but you just said 15,000?
Yes, 15,000. That's what the blue sheet is
Okay.
letting you know.
All right.
And of course, it came up just too late for us to get that out to you, so I do apologize about that. It's one of those 11th hours when you're trying to submit the grant, only to find out you're needing to find money. So.
If there are no further questions, I will entertain a motion.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call on the motion.
Roll call. Philbrook,
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
Bynum,
Aye.
Markley.
Aye. And that concludes our meeting. Thank you for your attendance. We are adjourned. I know.